Hello everyone, and welcome to my Young and the Restless official 24 channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Nick Newman was seething with unrestrained rage as the truth about Mitch, or rather, Matt Clark, continued to unravel in front of him. The walls of the shadow room pulsed with tension as Nick's voice cut through the low music and dim lights, his fury barely contained. He had just discovered that the man his son had been associating with wasn't who he claimed to be, and all of the pain, confusion, and fear that had built up since Noah's accident now boiled over into pure anger. His fist clenched, his jaw tightened, and his voice came out in a growl that echoed through the bar. "If you ever come near my family again," he snarled, shoving Mitch hard against the wall, "I swear to God, I'll kill you." "That's not a threat, that's a promise." Sienna gasped as the two men glared at each other, the weight of decades-old secrets crackling in the air like static electricity. Mitch, hiding behind his new identity, tried to act confused, but there was something in his eyes, something sharp and calculating, that betrayed him. Sienna stepped forward, her voice trembling as she demanded, "What the hell was that all about, Nick? Why are you calling my husband Matt?" But Nick had no patience left to answer. His fury consumed him as he stormed out of the shadow room, leaving chaos and confusion in his wake. Sienna turned to her husband, still shaking, her mind racing. Why would Noah Newman's father call Mitch by another name, one that made him pale as if a ghost had just stepped into the room? Mitch brushed it off, pretending not to understand. "I don't know what that lunatic's problem is," he muttered. "People around here seem to have me confused with someone else." But his deflection only deepened Sienna's unease. Something wasn't right, something had never been right since she met him. Meanwhile, at the Abbott mansion, the atmosphere was thick with tension of a different kind. Jack sat alone in the living room, lost in thought, when Kyle entered with a hesitant smile and his son Harrison's hockey gear in hand. "Come on, Dad," Kyle urged gently. "You promised you'd come with us to the rink today." But Jack shook his head, distracted and weary. "Not today, Kyle. I'm sorry." The air grew awkward as Kyle sighed, checking his phone. "Still no word from Claire?" he asked quietly. Jack's eyes softened. "No," he admitted. "But she'll reach out when she's ready." Kyle nodded, staring down at his phone as a text from Claire finally came through, a simple message that made his heart ache. "I miss you." He read it aloud, and both men fell silent for a moment, feeling her absence. Just then, Diane walked in, her expression filled with concern. "You two still thinking about her?" she asked knowingly. Jack nodded. "We both are." Diane sighed. "Then maybe it's time Kyle went after her." Across the country in Los Angeles, Claire sat in a sunny cafe with her mother, Victoria, nursing a cup of coffee as the world outside bustled on. Victoria's voice broke the calm. "I just got word, Noah's out of the coma," she said softly. Claire's eyes widened. "He is?" Relief flickered across her face. "Oh, thank God. Maybe now Nick can finally breathe again." But Victoria could see that her daughter's thoughts were elsewhere. "You've been quiet since we got here," she said. "Is this about Holden?" Claire hesitated, glancing down at her drink. "Maybe," she admitted. "I learned a lot about him, about myself, too. He's adventurous, spontaneous, everything I thought I wanted. But now I'm not sure I can live like that. Maybe I went too far trying to keep up with him." Victoria reached out and took her daughter's hand. "You don't have to live on the edge to be happy, sweetheart," she said. "Just live honestly, with yourself and with the people you love." Claire nodded slowly, realizing that her heart was still tied to Genoa City, to Kyle, and to the world she'd tried to leave behind. Back home, Nick had returned to the hospital where the sterile smell of disinfectant did little to calm the storm still raging inside him. Sharon met him at the door, her eyes narrowing as she read his face. "You hit him, didn't you?" she asked quietly. Nick didn't deny it. "He deserved worse," he snapped. "He's the reason our son nearly died." Sharon's eyes widened. Nick, you can't just go around attacking people. He clenched his fists. That man isn't who he says he is. He's Matt Clark, Sharon. He's supposed to be dead, but he's back. And this time, he went after Noah. Sharon froze, the color draining from her face. Matt Clark? That's impossible. Nick's voice broke with fury. Tell that to my knuckles. As they walked toward Noah's room, Sharon's heart raced. When they entered, Noah looked up weakly, his face still swathed in bandages. Hey, Mom. Dad, he said faintly. What's going on? Why does my room have a guard outside? Sharon forced a smile, trying to steady her voice. It's just precaution, honey. We want to make sure you're safe. But Noah could sense that something was being hidden from him. Safe from what? He asked. From who? The tension between his parents was palpable. They exchanged a glance that only deepened his suspicion. Out in the hallway, the doctor met them with a calm professionalism. Mr. and Mrs. Newman, your son is physically strong enough to hear the truth, he said. Be honest with him, but stop if he becomes too distressed. Sharon nodded, though her heart pounded in dread. We'll do our best. The doctor added one more piece of news. And there's something else. It's time to remove the bandages. Sharon gasped, tears springing to her eyes. Finally. Back in Noah's room, Nick tried to lighten the mood with one of his famously corny dad jokes as the nurse carefully began unwrapping the gauze from Noah's face. You ready, champ? He asked with forced cheer. Because once these come off, I'm charging you for all the hospital snacks you've been stealing. Noah laughed weakly, his nerves evident. As the final layer of bandages came away, he took a shaky breath. So, how bad is it? He asked. Sharon bit her lip. You look perfect to us, she said softly. Nick added, and Allie's gonna think you're even more handsome now. But at the mention of Allie's name, Noah's smile faded. I don't want her to see me yet, he murmured. His parents exchanged another worried glance. Why not? Sharon asked gently. Because, Noah said, his voice trembling, she doesn't know everything. Later, as Sharon and Nick discussed what to tell Noah, he suddenly spoke again, his tone distant and uncertain. I remember the accident, he whispered. I was at the club, with someone. Nick's pulse quickened. With who, son? Noah looked away. Sienna, he said finally. The name hit Sharon like a thunderclap. Sienna Bacall? Nick pressed. Why were you with her? Noah hesitated, flashes of memory hitting him hard and fast, Sienna's perfume, her laughter, the heat of her skin against his in a shadowy corner of the club. He could barely speak as the truth dawned on him. Dad. I think we were having an affair. Nick's face hardened in disbelief. What? He growled. Sharon gasped, clutching her chest. Noah, that woman's married. Noah's eyes filled with shame. I know. But it wasn't supposed to happen like that. She said Mitch was just her business partner. I didn't know. Nick turned away, fury burning in his chest. That man nearly destroyed our family once before. And now his wife is sleeping with my son. Sharon could barely breathe. Nick, please, don't make it worse. But he was already marching toward the door. Meanwhile, at the Abbott mansion, Diane and Jack were having their own tense conversation. Allie told me Noah's awake, Jack said, pacing. He's been through hell, but Sharon says he's getting stronger. Diane nodded softly. Good. Maybe now Kyle can get some peace, too. Jack sighed. He's still broken up over Claire. Diane placed a comforting hand on his arm. Then maybe it's time we push him to go back to LA. He needs closure. At first, Jack resisted. He's just getting his footing here again. But Diane was insistent. Sometimes you have to take a step back to move forward. Moments later, Kyle entered, clearly distraught. Did I interrupt something? He asked. Jack smiled faintly. No, son. We were just saying you should go fight for the woman you love. Kyle blinked, surprised. You think so? Diane nodded. Absolutely. Back in Los Angeles, Claire was admitting her truth to Victoria. Holden taught me a lot, she said quietly. But he's not the one. It was exciting, but it's not real. I don't think I'm ready for what Kyle wants right now. It's too much, too fast. Victoria frowned. Then you owe him honesty. He deserves to know where you stand. Claire nodded slowly. You're right. I'll tell him. She gathered her things, ready to leave for the airport, just as Holden appeared, smiling smoothly. Headed home? He asked. Let me take you to the airport. Claire hesitated but agreed, unaware that her choice to let him drive her would soon intertwine her life even deeper into the web of lies connecting Mitch, Sienna, and Noah. Back at the shadow room, Sienna wasn't letting Mitch off the hook. Why does Nick Newman think he knows you? She demanded. Why does he call you Matt? Mitch's expression darkened, his facade cracking. Drop it, Sienna, he warned coldly. You don't want to know. But she stepped closer, eyes blazing. Actually, I do. What aren't you telling me? The silence between them was suffocating. Finally, he hissed, you have no idea what you're getting into. At the hospital, Noah's memories were coming faster now, pieces of the puzzle clicking into place. I met Mitch in London, he said suddenly, his voice distant. He told me he had a business opportunity in Los Angeles. He said Sienna could help. Nick and Sharon listened in stunned silence. So you've known him for months? Sharon asked softly. Why didn't you tell us? Noah shook his head. I don't know. I thought it was nothing. But now, he froze as another flash hit him, Sienna's lips, her whisper, don't tell anyone about us. Nick's voice was low and dangerous. Do you remember something else, son? Noah's eyes met his father's, wide with guilt. Yeah, he said hoarsely. I remember everything. And just like that, the scandal that had been festering beneath the surface erupted into full view, the affair, the lies, the stolen identity, and the violent threat that tied it all together. For the Newmans, nothing would ever be the same again. Nick had declared war, not just on Mitch Clark, but on the past itself. Nick stood frozen outside Noah's hospital room, the hallway spinning as the weight of his son's confession crashed over him like a tidal wave. His hands trembled with barely restrained fury. He could still hear Noah's words echoing in his head, I remember everything. That single sentence carried a storm's worth of pain, guilt, and betrayal. The thought that Noah had been having an affair with Sienna, the wife of Matt Clark, the man who'd tormented the Newman family for years, was too much for Nick to process. His knuckles still ached from where he had punched Mitch earlier, but the physical pain was nothing compared to the burning rage inside him. This wasn't just a scandal, it was a full-blown nightmare. And now it was public. News outlets had already caught wind of the story. Within hours, whispers began spreading through Genoa City's tight-knit circles, Nick Newman assaults man in shadow room confrontation. Reporters were calling it a family feud, but the truth was far darker. Sharon had begged Nick to stay calm, but he couldn't. Every headline that popped up on his phone made his blood boil further. They're painting me like the bad guy, he snapped at Sharon in the waiting room. Meanwhile, Matt Clark gets to walk around free, pretending to be Mitch Bacall, smiling in front of cameras, living a lie. Sharon placed a hand on his arm, her voice low. Nick, please. If you do anything else reckless, it's only going to make things worse for Noah. Her words stung because they were true. Still, Nick couldn't shake the image of Mitch smirking at him earlier that night, pretending not to know who he was. Pretending not to be the man who'd haunted their lives for years. The man who had hurt Sharon, and now, indirectly, his son. He's not going to stop, Nick muttered darkly. Not until I stop him. Sharon's eyes filled with dread. Nick, don't say that. He looked up at her, his face hard. I meant what I said, Sharon. I'll kill him if I have to. At the same time, Sienna was pacing the length of her living room, her mind a tangled mess of confusion and fear. Mitch sat in his chair, eerily calm, sipping whiskey like nothing had happened. "You're scaring me," she whispered finally. "Nick Newman threatened to kill you, and you're acting like it's nothing." Mitch didn't look up. "Because it is nothing," he said coldly. "Nick Newman's a fool. He doesn't know who he's dealing with." Sienna's voice cracked. "He called you Matt. Why? Who is Matt Clark?" Mitch set down his glass with a sharp clink. His jaw tightened. "Drop it, Sienna." But Sienna couldn't. Her husband had been acting strange for weeks, vanishing without explanation, receiving cryptic phone calls, and avoiding eye contact whenever the Newmans' names came up. Now everything made a twisted kind of sense. She stepped closer, her heart pounding. "You said you wanted to start over. You said your past didn't matter. But it does, doesn't it? Mitch Bacall isn't your real name." He finally met her gaze, his eyes cold and empty. "You're asking the wrong questions," he said softly. "And if you keep asking them, you won't like the answers." Sienna froze. For the first time, she saw it, the flicker of danger behind his calm demeanor. She backed away slowly, her stomach twisting with dread. At that very moment, back at the hospital, Noah sat on the edge of his bed, still touching his face where the bandages had been. He could feel the roughness of new scars along his cheekbone, reminders of both the crash and his mistakes. A nurse had shown him the mirror earlier, and though his features were still handsome, they were changed, weathered by guilt, shame, and what he now remembered about that night. "It wasn't supposed to happen like that," he whispered to himself. Sharon watched her son quietly from the doorway. "You mean Sienna?" she asked softly. Noah nodded, his eyes filled with tears. "I never meant to hurt anyone. I didn't even know who she really was until it was too late." Sharon's expression softened with sorrow. "You're not the first Newman to fall for the wrong person," she said. But when Nick entered the room again, his energy was completely different. He was calm, too calm. Sharon recognized it as the dangerous kind of quiet that came before an explosion. "We're going home," he told Noah flatly. Sharon frowned. "He's not discharged yet." "Then I'll sign whatever papers I need to," Nick snapped. "I'm not leaving him here while that psycho is still walking free." Noah shook his head. "Dad, please, you don't understand." Nick turned sharply toward him. "No, son, you don't understand. That man is a murderer. He's hurt our family before. And now he's using you to get to us again." Noah's eyes widened. "Murderer?" Sharon nodded slowly. "Matt Clark died years ago, Noah. Or at least we thought he did. But if Mitch really is Matt, then he's been lying to everyone, including you and Sienna." Back at the Abbott mansion, Diane and Jack were still encouraging Kyle to go after Claire. "She's confused, Jack," Diane insisted. "She doesn't know what she wants, but she'll regret walking away from him." Jack sighed. "Maybe. But forcing him to chase her could make it worse." Just then, Kyle entered the room, his duffel bag slung over his shoulder. "Too late," he said with a sad smile. "I already booked a flight." Diane looked at him with motherly pride. "Good. Go get her, sweetheart." Jack gave him a long look. "You're sure this is what you want?" Kyle nodded firmly. "I can't just sit here wondering. I have to know if there's still a chance." As he left, Diane turned to Jack and whispered, "He's doing the right thing." Jack nodded slowly, though his eyes were heavy with concern. "I hope so," he said quietly. Meanwhile in Los Angeles, Claire stood outside the cafe with her suitcase, ready to head home, when Holden pulled up in his sleek black car. "Need a ride?" he asked with a grin. Claire hesitated. "Holden, I appreciate everything, but I think I need to do this on my own." Holden's smile faltered. "Come on, Claire. It's just a ride." She sighed and got in, not realizing that her decision to trust him again would have consequences that stretched all the way back to Genoa City. Back in Wisconsin, news of Noah's accident and the Shadow Room confrontation had spread to every corner of the Newman empire. The media had begun connecting the dots: the mysterious car crash, the hidden affair, Nick's violent outburst. Reporters were camping outside Newman Enterprises, hurling questions about the Newman scandal. Victoria's phone rang nonstop as she tried to contain the damage. "Nick, what were you thinking?" she yelled when he finally answered. "Do you have any idea what this is doing to the company's image?" Nick's response was cold and sharp. "I don't care about the company right now. I care about my son." Victoria pinched the bridge of her nose. "And threatening to kill someone in public helps how, exactly?" Nick's silence said everything. By nightfall, the story had officially hit the tabloids. Noah Newman's secret affair exposed. Business tycoon Nick Newman in bar brawl with Mitch Bacall. The headlines were ruthless, the photos even worse: Nick's punch caught mid-swing, Sienna crying, and Mitch clutching his jaw. The scandal wasn't just gossip anymore, it was a full-blown crisis. Sharon sat alone in the hospital cafeteria, scrolling through her phone with tears in her eyes. Their family's pain had become entertainment for the world. As the clock struck midnight, Nick stood outside under the cold glow of the hospital parking lot lights, his phone buzzing non-stop. But he didn't answer. He looked up at the sky, his thoughts consumed by revenge. If Mitch was really Matt Clark, then this wasn't over, not by a long shot. He could still hear his own voice echoing from earlier that day: "That's not a threat. That's a promise." And as if fate wanted to make things worse, Sienna sat alone in her apartment at that same moment, staring at her husband's reflection in the darkened window. "Who are you really?" she whispered again. Mitch's voice came from behind her, low and venomous. "Someone you shouldn't have crossed." The look he gave her made her blood run cold. Across the city, Sharon tucked Noah into bed, trying to stay calm as he drifted into an uneasy sleep. She whispered a silent prayer for peace, for her son, for Nick, and for herself. But peace wasn't coming. Not tonight. Because somewhere in the shadows, Mitch Clark was